It was the bald-faced kid who christened him Little Calamity because, as he explained, Jockey Gillis was a sniffling, whining, half-portion of hard luck and a disgrace to the disreputable profession of touting. Every season, said the bald-faced kid, is a tough season for a guy like that. He carries his hard luck with him. He's cockeyed something awful, his face was put on upside down, you can't tell whether he's looking you in the eye or watching out for a policeman, and drunk shy clear across the betting ring to get away from him. That's the tip-off, when a souse won't listen to your gentle voice, it's time to change your system of approach. This Little Calamity person has only got one thing in his favor, and that's an honest face. He looks like a thief, and, by golly, he is one. He couldn't sell a $20 gold piece for a dime or make a sucker put down a bet with the winning numbers already hanging on the board in front of him. They all give him the once-over and holler for the police. And as for his writing, he's about as much help to a horse as a fine case of the heaves. I'm darned if I know how he manages to live. Little Calamity sometimes wondered about this himself. Of course, there were the rare occasions when he was able to persuade a weak-minded owner to give him a mount on a hopeless outsider or a horse entered only for the sake of the workout, but the $5 jockey fees were few and far between. They could not be stretched to cover the intervening periods, so Little Calamity did his best to be a petty larcenist with indifferent success. He infested the betting ring with a persistence almost pitiful, but he had neither the appearance nor the manner which begets confidence in unlikely tales, and in his mouth the truth itself sounded like a fabrication. He was a willing but an unconvincing liar, and the few who lingered long enough to listen to his clumsy attempts went away smiling. Little Calamity was nearer 30 than 20, wrinkled and weazened and bow-legged. Worse than everything else, he was cross-eyed. The direct and compelling gaze is an absolute necessity in the touting business because the average man believes that the liar will be unable to look him in the eye. Little Calamity could not look any man in the eye without first undergoing a surgical operation. He had few acquaintances and no friends, he ate when he could, slept where he could, and life to him was just a continued hard luck story. Imagine, then, the incredulous amazement of the bald-faced kid when Old Man Curry informed him that Jockey Gillis had secured steady employment. "That shrimp," said the kid. "Why, if he had the ice-water privilege in hell he'd starve to death." "Frank," said the old man, "I wish you wouldn't be so blame careless with your figures of speech. There won't be any ice water for the wicked, it says in the book, and, anyway, it ain't a fit subject to joke about. It don't sound pretty." The bald-faced kid took this reproof with a sober countenance, for he respected the old man's principles even if he did not understand them. "All right, old-timer. I'll take your word for it. Got a steady job, has he? For heaven's sake, what doing?" "Running a racing stable for a man named Hopwood." "Running a stable. What does Calamity know about training horses?" "A heap more than Hopwood, I reckon, and, anyway, he'll only have one hoss to experiment on. Hopwood was over here this morning, visiting around and getting acquainted, he said. Awful gabby old coot. He's got a grocery store up in Butte, and used to go out to the racetrack once in a while. Some of those burglars got hold of him and sold him something with 4 legs and a tail. They told him it was a sure enough race hoss, and now he's down here to make his fortune. Gillis saw him first, I reckon. Hopwood has hired him by the month and a percentage of what he wins." At this the bald-faced kid laughed long and loud. "There's one of 'em born every minute," said he, "but I didn't think the supply was big enough to reach as far as Calamity. Didn't you tell this poor nut what he was up against, trying to horn his way into the jungle circuit with one lonely lizard and a human jinx to handle him?" "No," said Old Man Curry, "I didn't. What would be the use? You know what Solomon says about that sort of thing, don't you?" "I do not," answered the kid promptly, "but I'll be the goat as usual." What does he say? Answer not a fool according to his folly, lest thou also be like unto him, quoted Old Man Curry, and that's sound advice, my son. When a fool gets an idea crossways in his head, nothing but a cold chisel will get it out again, and, anyway, people don't thank you for pointing out their mistakes. It's human nature to get mad at a man that can prove he knows more than you do. This Hopwood has got it all whittled down to a fine point how he's going to do right well at the racing game, and the best way is to let him try it a while. It'll cost him money to find out that a grocery store is a safer place for him than a racetrack. A whip for the horse, a bridle for the ass, and a rod for the fool's back. That's Solomon again. Hopwood has got the gad coming to him for sure. Ain't that the truth? Exclaimed the kid. By the way, did he mention the name of the beetle that's going to do all this heavy work? That's the best joke of all, said Old Man Curry. Hopwood stable's down at the end of the line, where Gilfeather used to be. Go take a look at what they sold him for $500. I'll do that little thing, said the kid, rising. If he's got any dough left, I may want to sell him something myself. Little Calamity was in the box stall, industriously grooming a tall, wild-eyed chestnut animal with 4 white stockings in a blaze, and as he worked he hummed a tune under his breath. The tune stopped when he became aware of a head thrust in at the open door. The bald-faced kid glanced at the horse and his jaw dropped. Well, by the limping Lazarus, he ejaculated. If they haven't gone and slipped him last chance. Yes, I'd know that darned old hayhound if he was stuffed and in a museum, and, by golly, that's where he ought to be. Last chance. What's it to you? Growled Little Calamity sullenly. Can't you mind your own business? Your boss is in big luck, continued the visitor, pleasantly ignoring Calamity's manner. The worst horse and the worst jock in the world a prize package for fair. Last chance. His name ought to be No Chance. Now Loka here, whined Calamity, I never tried to queer anything for you, did I? Live and let live, that's what I say, and let a guy get by if he can. If you was right up against it and had a chance to grab off eating money, you wouldn't want anybody around knocking, would you? On the level? He looked up as he finished, and the bald-faced kid's heart smote him. Little Calamity's face was thinner than ever, there were hollows under his wandering eyes, and in them the anxious, wistful look of a half-starved cur which has found a bone and fears that it will be taken away from him. It occurred to the kid that even a rat like Gillis might have feelings, such feelings as may be touched by hunger and physical discomfort. And there was no mistaking the desperate earnestness of his plea. Things have been breaking awful tough for me around here, he went on. Awful tough. You don't know. And then this Hopwood came along. It ain't my fault if the sucker thinks he's got another Rosebin, is it? He wanted a trainer and a jockey, and somebody else would have picked him up if I hadn't. It's the first piece of luck I've had this year. All I want is a chance to string with this fellow as long as he lasts and get a piece of change for myself. That ain't hurting you any, is it? He's my only chance to eat regular, don't go scaring him away. The kid was about to reply when a short, fat gentleman waddled around the corner of the barn and paused, wheezing, at the door of the stall. A new owner's badge dangled prominently from his buttonhole, and this he fingered from time to time with manifest pride. He peered in at last chance and beamed upon the bald-faced kid with the utmost friendliness, his thick eyeglasses giving him the appearance of a jovial owl. Well, said he heartily, I see you're looking him over, young man. He's mine, I just bought him, and I think I got him cheap. Pretty fine-looking horse, eh? The kid nodded gravely. You bet your life, said he with emphasis. Take it from me, he is some horse. Some horse is right, chimed in Little Calamity fervently. Just wait till I get him in shape, boss, and I'll show you how much horse he is." "And that," said the bald-faced kid, "is no idle statement." "Frank," said Old Man Curry, "you're making more of a fool of that Hopwood than the Lord intended him to be, and it's a sin and a shame. Why can't you let him alone?" "Because he hands me many a laugh," said the bald-faced kid, "and laughs are good for what ails me. He is a three-ring circus in concert all by himself, but he doesn't know it, and that's what makes him so good." "And innocent?" "Say, the original babes in the wood haven't got a thing on him. If he stays around here, these sharpshooters will have his shirt. And you're helping them to get it with your lies. First thing you know, you'll have him betting on that hoss when he starts, and Last Chance never won a race in his life and never will. He can quit so fast that it looks like he's going the wrong way of the track. Hopwood was around here today all swelled up with the stories you've been feeding him. It ain't right, my son, and, what's more, it ain't honest. You might just as well pick his pockets and give the money to the bookmakers." "The bookmakers won't get fat on what they take away from him," was the careless rejoinder. "This fellow has got a groceryman's heart. He can squeeze $1 until the eagle screams for help, and he never heard of Riley Grannon. If he bets at all, it won't be more than a $10 note. Last Chance goes in the second race tomorrow, non-winners at the meeting, and I'm going down to the stable now to have a conference and give Calamity his riding orders." "I wash my hands of you," said the old man. "Fun is all right in its place, but fun that hurts somebody else has a way of coming home to roost. Don't forget that, my son." "Ah, who's going to hurt him?" was the sulky rejoinder. "I'm only helping the chump to buy some of the experience that you spoke about the other day." "Solomon says," began Old Man Curry, but the kid beat a hasty retreat. "Put him on ice till tomorrow," he called back over his shoulder. "This is my busy day." For a horse that had never won a race, Last Chance made a gay appearance in the paddock. Little Calamity, conscious of his shortcomings as a trainer, had done his best to offset them by extra activities in his capacity as stable hand. The big chestnut had been groomed and polished until his smooth coat shone like satin and blue ribbons were braided in his mane. The other non-winners were a sorry-looking lot of dogs when compared with Last Chance, and the owner's bosom swelled with proud anticipation. "Look at the fire in his eye," said Hopwood to the bald-faced kid. "See how lively he is." "Aha," said the kid, who was present in the role of advisor. "He seems to be full of pep today." As a matter of fact, Last Chance was nervous. He knew that a trip to the paddock was usually followed by a beating with a rawhide whip and a prodding with blunt spurs, hence the skittishness of his behavior and the fire in his eye. Given a decent opportunity, he would have jumped the fence and gone home to his stall. When the bell rang, Little Calamity came out of the jockey's room, radiant as a butterfly in his new silks. He had the audacity to wink when he saw the kid looking at him. "What do we do now?" demanded Hopwood, all in a flutter. "This is new to me, you know." "Well," said the kid, "I'd say it would be a right pious idea to get this fiery steed saddled up, unless Calamity here is figuring on riding him bareback, which I don't think the judges would stand for." Later it was the kid who gave Calamity his riding orders. "All right, boy," said he. "Nothing in here to beat but a lot of lizards. Never look back and make every post a winning one. He can torope this field and drag him to death." "PZZT," whispered the jockey. "Not so strong with it, not so strong." While the horses were on their way to the post, the bald-faced kid escorted Hopwood to a position in front of the grandstand. "You want to be handy in case he wins," said the kid. "You'll have to go down in the ring if he does. It's a selling race and they might try to run him up on you." In the ring, eh? Said Hopwood, straightening his collar and plucking at his tie. Do I look all right? But the kid was coughing so hard that he could not answer the question. I can't see very far with these glasses, said Hopwood, and you'll have to tell me about it. Where is he now? At the post, said the kid. The starter won't fool away much time with those. There they go now. Good start. Hopwood pawed at the kid's arm. I can't see a thing. Where is he? How's he doing? He broke flying and he's right up in front. That's good. That's fine. And now? Where is he now? Still up in front and winging, just winging. It's an exercise gallop for him. How much did you bet? Hopwood took off his glasses and fumbled at them with his handkerchief. Where is he now? Second, turning for home. He ought to win all by himself. They're choking to death behind him. And I didn't bet a cent, wailed the owner. But I said he was a good horse, remember? Sure you did, and he, oh, tough luck. Well, if that ain't a dirty shame. What is it? Chattered Hopwood. What happened? They bumped him into the fence, I think. Yes, he's dropping back. And it looked like a cinch for him, too. I'm afraid he won't get anything this time. Too bad. Well, that's racing luck for you. It's to be expected in this game. Sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. Good thing you didn't bet. I suppose so, gulped the unhappy owner. Well, next time, eh? That's the proper spirit. Keep after him. Hopwood put on his glasses in time to see the finish of the race. First came 4 horses, well bunched, after them the stragglers. Last of all a chestnut with 4 white stockings and a blaze galloped heavily through the dust, snorting his indignation. Last Chance had been hopelessly last all the way in spite of a rawhide tattoo on his flanks. The bald-faced kid, wishing to forestall a conflict of evidence, made it his business to have the first word with the principal witness. He walked beside little Calamity as that dispirited midget shuffled down the track from the judge's stand, saddle and tackle on his arm. Close behind them was Hopwood, leading the horse. Pretty tough luck, said the kid, getting bumped in the stretch when you had the race won. Little Calamity stared from under the peak of his cap in blank, uncomprehending amazement. Huh, he grunted. Bumped? Ah, quit jaw kiddin'. Well, said the kid, the boss couldn't see and I was telling him about the race. It looked to me as if they bumped him. A gleam of intelligence lighted the straying eyes. Instantly the jockey took his cue. Oh, said he, loudly, you mean in the stretch? Yeah, he had a swell chance till then, goin' nice, and all, but the bumping took the run out of him. He'll beat the same bunch like breakin' sticks the next time. Then, under his breath, you're a pretty good guy after all. Well, was the ungracious rejoinder, don't kid yourself that it's on your account. Since it was his practice never to accept the obvious but to search diligently for the hidden motive behind every deed, good or bad, little Calamity gave considerable thought to the matter and at last believed that he had arrived at the only possible explanation of the kid's conduct. Boss, said he that evening, did you bet any money today? Not a nickel, was the answer. Or give anybody any money to bet for you? No. Did anybody ask to be your bettin' commissioner? No. Why? Oh, nothing. I just wanted to know. Before little Calamity went to sleep that night, he reviewed the situation somewhat as follows. My dope was wrong, but it's a cinch a hustler like the kid ain't hangin' around the boss for his health. And he didn't kick in with that alibi because he loves me any too well. I can't figure him at all. If he could have heard a conversation then going on in old man Curry's tackle room, the figuring would have been easier. Frank, said the old man, I had my eye on you today. You ain't got designs on that fool's bankroll, have you? The bald-faced kid blew a cloud of cigarette smoke into the air and watched it float to the rafters before he answered question with question. How long have you known me, old-timer? Quite a while, my son. You know that I get my living by doing the best I can? Yes. Did you ever know me to steal anything from a blind man? Or even one that was nearsighted? No. Oh. Then don't worry about this Hopwood. But he ain't blind except in the scriptural sense. Think not, eh? Listen. That bird can't see as far as the 16th pole. Somebody has got to watch the races and tell him how well his horse is going, or else he'll never know. Think what he'd miss. I'm his form chart in his eyes, old-timer, and all I charge him is a laugh now and then. Cheap enough, ain't it? Old man Curry found his packet of fine cut and thrust a large helping into his left cheek. For as the crackling of thorns under a pot, he quoted, so is the laughter of a fool. The end of the meeting was close at hand. The next town on the jungle circuit was preparing to receive the survivors. The owners were plotting to secure that elusive commodity known as getaway money. Some of them would have been glad to mortgage their chances for a receipted feed bill. Last Chance had started 5 times, and each time Hopwood had listened to a thrilling description of the race. The chestnut's performances had been bad enough to strain the kid's powers of invention. On the eve of the final struggle of the non-winners, the kid sat in grave consultation with Hopwood and little Calamity, and the rain drummed on the shingle roof of the tackle room. The fat man was downcast. He had been hinting about selling Last Chance at auction and returning to Butte. You don't mean to say that you're going to quit? Demanded the kid, incredulously. Just when he's getting good? What's the use? Was the dreary reply. Luck is against me, ain't it? But he's always knocking at the door, ain't he? He's always right up there part of the way. You can't get the worst of it every time, you know. Be game. I've had the worst of it every time so far, said Hopwood, with a dejected shake of his head. Every time. I swear I don't know what's wrong with that horse. He looks all right and he acts all right, but every time he starts something happens. They bump him into the fence or pocket him where he gets a clod in his eye and quits. He's been last every time but one, and then he was next to last. I'm sort of discouraged, boys. Ah, never mind, boss, chirped little Calamity, one eye on the kid and the other wandering in the general direction of the owner. Tomorrow is another day and there ain't a thing left in the non-winner class for him to beat. All the good ones are gone. He worked fine this morning, and you've said that every time. Yes, but you're overlooking the muddy track. Hopwood blinked in perplexity as the kid came to the rescue with a new story. The muddy track? What difference will that make? Listen to him. All the difference in the wide world. Yeah, chimed in Calamity. You bet it makes a difference. You're forgetting that Last Chance is by a mutter out of a mutter, suavely explained the kid. His daddy used to win stakes knee-deep in it. His mother liked mud so well they had to mix it with her oats to get her to eat regular. What difference will it make? Ha! Wait and see. The owner rose, grunting heavily. I hope you're right this time, said he. Lord knows I've had disappointments enough. When I bought this horse they guaranteed him to win at least every other time he started. With an even break in the luck, of course, interrupted the kid. You've got to have luck too. They didn't mention anything about luck when they took my money. Hopwood was positive on this point. They told me it was a sure thing and I wouldn't be in this mess if I hadn't thought it was. You boys talk it over between you. I'm going to ask Mr. Curry if he wants to buy a horse. He can have him for half what he cost me. Hopwood turned up his collar and departed. The two conspirators listened until his footsteps died away down the row of stables. Will Curry split on us? Asked Little Calamity, anxiously. Not in 1,000 years, was the confident reply. The old man is a sport in his way. It's a queer way, but he's all right at that. He plays his own string and lets you play yours. Hopwood will find out what Solomon says about buying strange horses, but the old man won't tip your hand or mine. Queer genius, Curry is. Well, your sucker has lasted longer than I thought he would. And now he's getting onto himself, said Calamity mournfully. He's not. He's getting cold feet. Tomorrow is the last crack we'll get at him. Can this beagle run in the mud? How do I know? I was only stringing him. Little Calamity sighed and the kid rose to take his departure. Wait a minute, said the other. Don't go yet. Maybe this horse will do better in the mud. You don't know and I don't know, but he might. What he might do ain't worrying me, said the kid. Listen a second. Maybe you won't believe it, but I've been on the up and up with the boss. Honest, I have. I could have tipped one of the other hustlers to tout him and sink the money for a split, but, well, I didn't do it, that's all. He was white to me and I tried to be white too, see? I even told him not to bet on the horse until I gave him the office, and so far we've been running for nothing but the purse. You haven't touted him either. Draw your bat and make a quick finish, said the kid shortly. What's it all about? Suppose I should talk him into putting a bet down tomorrow? A bet on what? On last chance. It ain't no crime for a man to bet on his own horse, is it? He told me he'd give me a percentage of what he won. Maybe the old crowbait will go better in the mud, and I'll ride him until his eyes stick out a foot. We might accidentally get down there to the judge's stand in front, Anne. And still you haven't said anything, interrupted the kid. You want something, what is it? I want you not to queer the play. Hopwood won't bet much, like as not he won't bet anything without putting it up to you first. It's my last chance to pick up a piece of change. Last chance on last chance, mused the kid, and that's a hunch, but I wouldn't play it with counterfeit Confederate money. But if he comes to you, you won't knock it, will you? I'll tell him that as an owner he ought to use his own judgment. If he wants to bet, I'll see that he gets the top price. You are a good guy, said Little Calamity. I think Last Chance will be a better horse tomorrow, somehow. The bald-faced kid shot a keen glance at the jockey. What do you mean, a better horse? A powder on his tongue, maybe? Calamity shook his head. I never hopped a horse, I wouldn't know how to go about it. If I got to fooling with them speed powders, I might give him too much and have him climbing a tree on the way to the post. Cheese it. Here comes the boss. Hopwood entered, shaking the water from the brim of his hat, his lower lip sagging and an angry light in his eye. Well, asked the kid from the doorway, what did Curry say? Grunted the fat man, disgustedly. He read me a chapter out of Proverbs. It was all about the difference between a wise man and a fool. Confound it! He needn't have rubbed it in. It was the last race of the day, and from their sheltered pagoda the judges looked out upon the river of mud which had been the home stretch. 48 hours of rain had turned it into a grand canal. The presiding judge scowled as he examined the opening odds. Non-winners, eh? Same old bunch of hounds. Grayling, 2-1, Ivy Leaf, 4-1, Montezuma, 10-1, Bluestone, 10-1, Alibi, 15-1, Stuffy Eaton, 25-1, and here's last chance again. I wonder where Hopwood got that horse. Remember him, 2 years ago at Butte? I thought he was pulling a junk wagon by now. Last chance, 50-1. Jockey Gillis, There's a sweet combination for you. A horse that can't untrack himself, a jockey that never rode a winner, and a half-witted grocer. Why couldn't the chump stick to the little villainies that he knows about, sanding the sugar and watering the kerosene? I declare, sir, if I had half an excuse I'd refuse the entry of that horse and warn Hopwood away from here. It would be an act of Christian charity to do it. The bald-faced kid, faithful to the bitter end, assisted in the paddock as usual. Last chance, his tail braided in a hard knot and minus the ribbons in his mane, submitted to the saddling process with unusual docility. His customary attitude of protest seemed to be swallowed up in a gloomy acquiescence to fate. It was as if he said, "You can do this to me again if you want to, but I assure you now that it is useless, quite useless." Calamity leaned down from the saddle and whispered in the kid's ear. "You can get 50 and 60-1 on him. The boss said he'd make a bet. Don't let him overlook it." When the bugle sounded, Hopwood grasped the bridle and led the horse through the chute to the track. The rain beat hard upon his hunched shoulders and his feet plowed heavily through the puddles. Repeated failure had robbed him of the pride of ownership and all confidence in horseflesh. He was, as the bald-faced kid said to himself, a sad-looking mess. Hopwood spoke but once, wasting no words. "Make good if you're going to," said he tersely, "because win or lose I'm through." "Yes, boss, and don't forget what I told you. Today's the day to bet on him. Go to it." Last chance splashed away down the track and Hopwood turned on his heel with a growl. "Come along," said he to the kid. "I might as well be all the different kinds of fool while I'm about it." "Where to now?" asked the kid innocently. "To the betting ring," was the grim response. "I said I'd bet on him this time and I will. Come along." From his perch on the inside rail, the official starter eyed the non-winners with undisguised malevolence. Some of them were cantering steadily toward the barrier, some were walking, and one, a black brute, seemed almost unmanageable, advancing in a series of wild plunges and sudden sidesteps. "Ah, ha," said the starter, with suitable profanity. "Old Alibi has got his hop in him again. I'll recommend the judges to refuse his entry." Then, to his assistant, "Jake, take hold of that crazy black thing and lead him up here. Don't let go of his head for a second or he'll be all over the place. Lively now. I want to get out of this rain. Walk him up, you crook-legged little devils. Walk him up, I say." Last chance advanced sedately to his position, which was on the outer rail. Grayling, the favorite, had drawn the inner rail. Jake, obeying orders, swung his weight on Alibi's bit and dragged the rearing, plunging creature into the middle of the line. At that instant the starter jerked the trigger and yelled, "Come on! Come on!" The whole thing happened in the flicker of an eyelid. As Jake released his hold, Alibi whirled at right angles and bolted for the inner rail, carrying Grayling, Ivy Leaf, Satsuma, and Jolson with him. They crashed into the fence, a squealing, kicking tangle, above which rose the shrill, frightened yells of the jockeys. This left but 4 horses in the race, and one of them, Old Last Chance, passed under the barrier with a wild bound which all but unseated his rider. It was not his habit to display such unseemly haste in getting away from the post and, to do him justice, Last Chance was no less surprised and shocked than a certain young man of our acquaintance. "Well, look at that lizard go," gasped the bald-faced kid. "Look at him go." "Honest Injun?" asked Hopwood. "Is he going really?" "Is he going?" "He's going crazy. And listen to this. That black thing carried a big bunch of 'em into the fence and they're out of it. Only 4 in the race and we're away flying. Do you get that? Flying. Honest? Can't you hear the crowd hissing the rotten start?" "Well," said Hopwood, it's about time I had a little luck." "That skate has got something besides luck with him today," exclaimed the kid. "I wonder now, did he try a powder after all?" But no, he was quiet enough on the way to the post. Seeing nothing ahead of him but mud and water, Jockey Gillis steered Last Chance toward the inner rail. "Don't you quit on me, you crab," he muttered. "Don't you quit. Keep going if you don't want me to put the bee on you again. Hiya." Montezuma, Bluestone, and Stuffy Eaton were the other survivors, bad horses all. Their riders, realizing that something had happened to the real contenders, drove them hard, and on the upper turn Jockey Gillis, peering over his shoulder, saw that he was about to have competition. He began to boot Last Chance in the ribs, but the aged chestnut refused to respond to such ordinary treatment. "All right," said Jockey Gillis, savagely. "If you won't run for the spurs, you'll run for this." And he drove his clenched fist against the horse's shoulder. Last Chance grunted and did his best to leap out from under his tormentor. Failing in this, he spurted crazily and the gap widened. "There it goes again," muttered the kid, under his breath. "He's pretty raw with it. Now if the judges notice the way that horse is running, they may frisk Calamity for an electric battery, and if they find one on him, good night." "Where is he now?" demanded Hopwood. "Still in front, if he can stay there." "Honest, is he?" "Ask anybody," howled the kid, in sudden anger. "You don't need to take my word for it." At the paddock gate Last Chance was rocking from side to side with weariness, and the pursuit was closing in on him. Jockey Gillis measured the distance to the wire and waited until Montezuma and Bluestone drew alongside. 25 feet from home his fist thumped Last Chance on the shoulder again. The big chestnut answered with a frenzied bound and came floundering under the wire, a winner by a neck. "He won," cried Hopwood. That was him in front, wasn't it?" "That was what's left of him," was the response. "Maybe we'd better not cheer until the judges give us the official on those numbers. I've got a hunch they may want to see Jock Gillis in the stand." And to himself, the fool. He handed it to him again right under their noses. Does he think the judges are cockeyed too? "Here's our chance to get rid of the grocer," said the presiding judge to his associate. "Did you notice the way that horse acted? The boy's got a battery on him, sure as guns. 100 yards from the wire. Last chance checked to a walk, and as jockey Gillis turned the horse he tossed a small, dark object over the inside fence. It fell in a puddle of water and disappeared from sight. When the winner staggered stiffly into the ring, Gillis flicked the visor of his cap with his whip. "Judges," he piped. The presiding judge answered the salute with a nod, but later when the rider was leaving the weighing room, he halted him with a curt command. "Bring that tack up here, boy." The investigation, while brief, was thorough. The judges examined the saddle carefully for copper stitching, looked at the butt end of the whip, ran their hands over Calamity's thin loins, and last of all felt in his bootlegs for wires connected with the spurs. All this time jockey Gillis might have been posing as a statue of outraged innocence. "Nothing on him," said the presiding judge shortly. "Hang up the official." Jockey Gillis bowed and saluted. "Judges, can I go now?" said he. "Yes," said the presiding judge, "and don't come back. You're warned off, understand?" "Judges," whined jockey Gillis, "I ain't done a thing wrong. That old horse, he..." "Git," said the presiding judge. "Now where is that man Hopwood? If he bet much money on this race." The bald-faced kid was waiting at the paddock gate. He greeted little Calamity with blistering sarcasm. "You're a sweet little boy, ain't you? A nice little boy. Here I stall for you for weeks, and you didn't even tell me that the old skate was going to have the Thomas A. Edison trimmings with him today." "Honest," said the jockey, "I didn't think there was enough electricity in the world to make it a cinch. I took a long chance myself, that's all. I had to do it. And got caught with the battery on you, too. Didn't you know any better than to slip him the juice right in front of the wire? Think those judges are blind?" "Well," said little Calamity, "I don't know how good their eyes are, at that. Jock Hennessy, he's been riding with a hand buzzer every time the stable checks are down. This morning he loaned it to me." "Oh, it was a hand buzzer, eh?" "Sure. I chucked it over the fence when I was turning him around after the race." "Fine work. What did the judges say to you?" "They warned me away from the track. I should worry. There's other tracks. Only thing is, they've got Hopwood in the stand now, and he'll be fool enough to tell them this was the first time he bet on the horse. Somehow, I'd hate to see the old bird get into trouble. Say, by the way, how much did he bet?" The bald-faced kid began to laugh. He laughed until he had to lean on the rail for support. "Don't worry," said he, at last. "The judges won't be too hard on him. He hunted all over the ring until he found some 75 to 1, and then he bet the wad 2 great big iron dobby dollars, all at once, mind you." $2, gasped little Calamity. $2? It serves you right for not letting me know about the buzzer. I'd have made him bet more. As it stands, your cut will be 75 if he splits with you, and I think he will. That's a lot of money when you haven't got it." "Bah! Chicken feed." This with an almost lordly scorn. "It's a good thing those judges didn't take off my boots. Then they would have found something." He fumbled for a moment and produced 8 pasteboards. "I had $16 saved up, and one of the boys bet it for me, every nickel of it on the nose. $75. I'm over 800 winner to the race." "Holy mackerel," ejaculated the kid. "What are you going to do with all that money?" I'm going to buy a diamond pin and a gold watch and a ring with a red stone in it and a suit of clothes and an overcoat and a derby hat and a pair of silk socks and a porterhouse steak 4 inches thick and a... Enough, said the kid. Sufficient. If there's anything left over, you better erect a monument to the guy that discovered electricity. This happened long ago. Hopwood's grocery store still does a flourishing business. Over the cash register hangs a crayon portrait of a large yellow horse with 4 white stockings and a blaze. The original of the portrait hauls the Hopwood delivery wagon. Irritated teamsters sometimes ask Mr. Hopwood's delivery man why he does not drive where he is looking.